Hi guys, in this video we're going to talk about the customizers as to how to add the custom customizer features to your WordPress theme. And in our previous videos we discussed how to add the customizer features to your theme and using PHP to preview it. However, we discussed in the second video that how we can do it with the JavaScript, and this video is actually the continuation of that. Okay. So in my previous video, if you remember, we discussed about the theme customization API in my first video, wherein we discussed about as to how to go ahead and add the customization features to your theme, adding the options and controls over here. Okay, and at that time we went ahead and used the customized register hook and hooked our custom function to it. And inside of the custom function we use three functions: add setting, add section, and add control. Add control to add the control to the um, customizer, add section to add those controls to the show those controls in the input field of the customizer. Okay, add the section containing input field of the customizer, and add setting was basically to create a database value for the theme setting. Okay, so we use this hook to go ahead and register that, and it was showing over here. And when we went ahead and used the WP head hook and hooked our custom function to it to add this style on it, so that whenever we go ahead and make any changes over here, the preview is shown using this WP head hook. However, since we're going to do it through JavaScript this time so that the page loads faster, okay, hence we are going to use not going to use the WP head hook. We're just going to use the customize register hook. And if you check on codex, it talks about that you can go ahead and add these additional functions, get setting, using the post message method. Okay, uh, and you can also use this customize preview init hook. Okay, and there's one more hook we're going to use. Let me show that to you. So customize preview init hook and customize controls and queue scripts hook. So these are the two hooks that we're going to use. Okay, so let's begin then. So first thing we need to do is we need to create a directory called admin inside of our theme. So this is my theme Cornova. I have created a directory called admin, and inside of that you create a directory called customizer, and just ignore this quirky bit. Okay, so we'll go ahead and create a folder called customizer. Inside of that we'll create a folder called JS. Okay, and to include all of the files inside admin, we'll go on to our functions.php, scroll down where it says file includes, and we need to include all of the file inside of the admin directory. So I'm using my constant, which is going to give me the path up until my theme, and then it's going to go to admin directory, and then it's going to include all the files inside. So star means all the files inside of the admin directory, which ends with .php extension, and I'm using the for each loop to check all of these files inside of the array, and basically include all of these files inside this admin directory. Okay, cool. Now what we're going to do now is inside of the admin folder we're going to go ahead and create two files inside of the JS folder, which is customizer control.js and customizer live preview.js. So customizer preview.js, yeah, customizer live preview.js. Okay, customizer live preview.js is to deal with the preview. So whenever you go ahead and make any changes on the customizer, let's say you go ahead and change the color of the header. So to see the live preview over here on the back end, you're going to go ahead and create this file, customizer live preview.js to deal with the preview, and the other file which is customizer control.js to handle the controls inside the customizer panel. Okay, just to show it to you what this panel is. Okay, so if I increase the font, can see that this is the panel. So 1, 2, 3, 4, all of these are panels. Okay, and then you have section inside that. So inside of that you have different sections, like sidebar, copyright, and inside of the section you have controls. So if you go inside of it, you have different controls. All of this, this controls. Okay, so customizer-control.js to handle the controls inside of the customizer panel. Okay, so in the first file, which is the customizer-control.js, we're going to add this set of codes, and this contains the custom scripts for customizer controls pane. Okay, so I'll just show that to you. I'm going to increase the font so you can see it clearly. Okay, so go ahead and include this set of codes inside of the customizer control.js, and this is to basically it contains the custom script for customizer controls panel. Okay, now the second is the customizer live preview. Okay, it handles the live preview Ajax call. This file is for customized preview. This file is cached by Wordpress Customizer, so either change the version number dynamically to prevent caching or hard refresh each time to make changes to this file. Okay, so basically what's happening over here is that whenever you go ahead and make any changes onto the backend in the customizer, for example, you select this or you select this option, then in that case, whatever live preview that you see over here is happening because of the JavaScript. So if you notice over here, it is selecting the title, and then it's saying dot text and it's saying 2, and all of those 2 whatever change is going to be made over here is coming from here. Okay, header text color, and this all of these codes that are responsible for bringing the live preview changes into the customizer. Okay, so you go ahead and add these 2 set of codes. You can just pause the video and go ahead and add these codes. Okay, all right, and that is what is shown onto codex as well, theme customization API, that you need to into the customizer.js file. You need to add these set of codes. Okay, so you can just copy it from here. All right, once you do that, once you have these 2 files, okay, then the first file we're going to create would be customizer setting.php. Okay, so we need to add these settings. So if you remember, in the previous video we had used these functions, add control, add setting, add section, and things like that. Okay, so we're going to do the same as well. So the first one is for the site title and tagline, and the first function is add setting. So this is going to add the setting to the database. So if you check the WordPress codex, if you scroll up, you can see that you need to use the add setting function. Okay, and if you see inside of the add setting function, the different parameters you need to pass. First is the ID. Okay, so ID is Cornova height tagline. So what I'm trying to create over here is inside of this site entity, this particular option, height tagline, is what I'm trying to create. Okay, so I'm using add setting to the database. I'm using the ID as Cornova height tagline. Okay, and that's what the ID is. Okay, and then next is a set of arguments, which would be an array, which is required. Okay, and inside of the array default, I'm putting it as 0, and capability, I'm putting it as edit theme options. If you notice, inside of capability, by default it's edit theme options. Okay, that's what I mentioned over here. Then it says sanitize callback. So sanitize callback, a function name to call for sanitizing the input value for this setting. The function should be of the form of standard filter function, where it accepts the input data and returns the sanitized data. So the reason why we're sanitizing the data is because we're inserting something into database. So definitely we need to sanitize the data. So hence we need to use a callback function. So we have defined a custom function Cornova sanitize checkbox, for which I have created a customizer functions.php file, and inside of which I have gone ahead and defined this particular functions, Cornova sanitize checkboxes. So you can see here, and we're checking if this function does not exist, and then define this function. This will have the value of input available, and we are checking if the input is equal to 1, then return 1, else return 0. So we're just sanitizing the checkbox for the customizer. Okay, then we come down, it's add control. So add control is basically, is going to add the controls over here. High tagline, okay, this one. So if you check the add control function, it accepts two parameters. First is the ID and second is arguments. So I have passed the same ID as I've passed in the add setting function, which is Cornova hat tagline. And second is the argument, which is an array. First is label. Okay, so example of label is this. This is a translation function, so that this label is translated. This will be the name which will be displayed over here. So you can see this name displayed over here is coming from label, high tagline, and that's what it is, high tagline, and this is basically the slug of your theme. Then the next one is section. Section means that which section are you going to add these controls to. So I'm going to add these controls to the title tagline. Okay, how do I know what name should I mention in this section? If you go onto your function, you can see over here inside of the section parameter, it says title tagline, colors, header image, background image, static front page, and so on. So if you want to add some controls to the site identity over here, okay, then you need to use the title tagline. If you want to add it to the colors, which is this section, then you need to use the colors name as colors over here in the section property. Okay, if you want to use it for header image, if you had anything on header image over here, okay, then you're going to use the header image name in the section property. Okay, so on and so forth. Next is settings. Settings is basically the setting ID which you have mentioned in the add setting, which is the same, Cornova high tagline. And next is the type. How do I know what type should I mention? So depending on what you want, for example, if you want text, checkbox, radio, select text area, drop down pages, and so on. So in my case, I need the checkbox, and if you can see, this is a checkbox, right? And this is why I have mentioned checkbox over here. Okay, so these two set of codes is basically responsible for add control is responsible for adding control over here for the high tagline, and add setting is basically to insert this data into the database for this particular customizer setting. Okay, next is general. Now in case if you want to create an entirely new panel over here, this general panel was not there, is not provided by WordPress. This is created by my theme. So if you want to create this general tab and have all of this going on over here, then you need to use the function. If you want to create any panel over here like this, then you need to use the function called add panel. So I'm using the add panel function. Okay, and add panel function, which is basically these all functions like add section, add panel, add setting, add control. All of these functions are basically the methods of the WP Customizer class, and this WP Customizer is an object instantiated by the WP Customizer class. Okay, all right. So add panel function. So what are the arguments it accepts? Let's see. It's too big. Yeah. First argument is the ID, which is required. Okay, so I'm going to name the ID as Cornova general panel, and the next argument is arguments of an array which accepts priority. It's 10. What are these priorities actually? Let me show you. So if you go to Codex under the customize API and all this link, basically a theme handbook, you can see that it talks about the priority. So depending on where you want this panel, do you want it at this position, do you want it at this position, do you want it at bottom, you need to set the priority. Okay, so you can see over here that the lower the priority, higher it will appear. Okay, so for site title and tagline, the priority is 20. For colors, it's 40. So site identity, colors, background image is 80. So since I have set the priority to 10, which is why it's gonna go ahead and show on the top of all the other panels, all the other sections. Okay, so you can see over here I've given the priority as 10, and 10 is definitely lower than the site title and tagline, and which is why it is showing above the site title and tagline. If I go ahead and change the priority to, let's say, I make it 300, and I'm going to go ahead and now refresh the page. You can see it's gone down. Yeah. So basically, priority will decide at what position your customizer section or panel is going to show. Okay. Cool. Now, next is capability. So capability. Let's see what we have in capability. Capability required for the panel default is edit theme option. Okay, so we'll use edit theme option, and that's what we had used for the site title and tagline also. Okay, so how do we know what all parameters need to pass? You need to always come onto Codex, search that function or method, and check what does each parameter do. What does each fields or the properties and values do, and we can define it accordingly. Next is theme support. We're keeping blank title. Title is basically the title that's going to show over the. So if you go over here, okay, so you can see general over here, right? So that's basically the title. Okay, and then you need to pass the slug, and you're using escape HTML to escape the data, and then this double underscore is basically to translate this. Okay, in case if your theme is using translation. All right. So this basically this set of code over here. Okay. Um, right, general. Okay, so this is going to add this general section over here. Now inside of this general section, okay, I want to go ahead and add the two more sections inside of this panel. I want to go ahead and add two sections basically, sidebar position and copyright text. So for that, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use for the sidebar position, which is this. I'm going to use three functions. Remember, that's what we did in our previous videos as well. If you had to add any particular section inside of our customizer, we used three functions. First, add control to go ahead and add those controls, and then add sections, so to put that section onto the customizer, and then add setting is to insert those data into database. So these were the three functions we used earlier, and that's what we're going to use now as well. Okay, just remember that if you want to add these sections inside of any of the existing panels, then you can do that as well. All right, like for example, we did that here, site title and tagline, where we went ahead and put the section as title tagline, uh, and that's how it was showing under site identity, right? But in our case, in the second case, what we did is we created an entirely new panel, and inside of that panel we want to go ahead and include these sections. So we don't want to include the sections into one of the existing panels, but we want to create a new panel general, and inside of that we want to go ahead and create these sections. And hence over here, instead of putting title tagline in the section, what we're doing over here is we are using Cornova sidebar position section in the section field in the section property. Okay, earlier we used title tagline because we wanted to include the section into site identity panel, but since we want to include into our custom panel general, hence in the place of section we are using our own ID. Yeah, perfect. So let's continue. So add section is going to go ahead and Okay, let's start from here. All right, add controls. So it's going to go ahead and add the controls. Okay, so as we've already discussed the add control, I think we haven't discussed that. Let's look at that. Oh yeah, we have. Okay, so the first parameter it is going to accept is the ID, but over here in the add control, what we're doing is, just one moment. Yeah, if you scroll down on the add control function reference, you can see that you can go ahead and pass this parameter as well, which means you can pass an object of WP customize control color control class. So in this situation, what we're doing is we are using this class WP customize control. So we are passing. So when we are using new, it's going to go ahead and instantiate an object out of this class and is going to pass that object as the parameter into this add control function. Okay, and inside of this class, we are passing the parameter as WP customize, and then we're passing the ID, which is Cornova sidebar position. Okay, which is this. All right, and we're using a array of arguments using label, section, settings. Setting is basically Cornova sidebar position. Okay, and then section is basically this ID over here, and then type is radio. Remember we discussed that we can define different types. So earlier we had used checkbox, now we're going to use radio. So we'll get the radio button. Okay, and then choices left, right, and no sidebar. So all of this controls is basically, if you check, all of this left, right, and no sidebar, all of this coming from here. And this is going to create the control, and you're going to use the add section to add these controls over here in the sidebar position. And that's what we're doing over here, add section. You're putting the ID and then array of arguments. We're going to put the title, which is sidebar position, which is this. Then we're going to pass the slug. Capability is edit theme options. And then description, we're putting that as blank. And then panel is Cornova general panel. Okay. So this is the ID that we're using because we had created this our custom panel, and we had given it an ID of Cornova general panel, and this, which is why we are using this ID inside of this panel property. Okay. Now we are using the add setting function to add these settings to the insert into database. So we're using the same ID, which is we're using an ID called Cornova sidebar position. We are passing an array of arguments. Default is right, which means that if you don't select anything over here, if you don't select anything by default, it's going to select the right option and keep the sidebar on the right hand side. Then capability is edit theme options. Remember, that's what we discussed. If you want to know what to be passed, capability is edit theme options for the add setting function. Yep. And sanitize callback, again we need to sanitize the data, so we'll use a custom function Cornova sanitize choices, which we have defined into our customizer functions. Okay, over here. Okay, and we are going ahead and sanitizing the data. So use for sanitizing radio or select options in customizer. All right, cool. All right, so basically these three functions are responsible for creating our so basically this add panel function has created this general panel, and inside of that general panel, add control has created the controls of left, right, and no sidebar choices. Add section is added those controls into sidebar position section, and add setting is inserted that data, whatever the user selects is going to be inserted into database using the add setting function. Okay, cool. Now this, I think the next thing left is basically the second section, which is copyright text, and that's what we're going to do now. Again, we're going to use the add section, add setting, and add control. All of these functions, they're doing the same thing basically. So add control is going to go ahead and add these controls inside of the copyright text section. So we're passing an ID, Cornova copyright text, array of arguments, label copyright text, which is this. Cornova slug section, Cornova copyright text section, which is basically this ID. And settings, it is setting ID, Cornova copyright text, this ID, okay, and then type is equal to text. So type is equal to text, because we don't want checkbox, we don't want radio, this time we want the text, and that's what we have over here. Okay, notice that if I change it to radio, obviously it won't work right now because we haven't passed other information. So anyways, text, right? So it's going to give me a text option over here inside of general copyright text. Okay, cool. And then the add section is going to add all of these controls over here. Okay, using the ID Cornova copyright text section. Array of arguments, title is copyright text. Cornova capability, edit theme options, description. This description is coming from here. Panel, basically the ID of the panel that we have created. So we used add panel function and we're passing this ID over here. Okay, and then add setting is basically going to add all of this data, whatever user selects or inserts into database. If I go ahead and use this HJ, if you scroll down, you can see. Okay, moment. All right, so you can see that whatever changes we go ahead and make over here is being changed at the bottom in the footer section. Okay, and after defining all of these functions, if you go on to codex, it talks about that you need to add all of this post message. So please note that WordPress theme customizer setting use transport refresh by default. So if you want to make default built-in theme customizer option, also take advantage of this. Okay, so you need to add all of these codes get setting function, basically method over here. So that's what I've done over here. Gone and added that. Okay. Now once you have all of these codes needs to go inside a function basically. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and create a file called class customizer init.php. So instead of defining all of those functions inside a custom function and then using the hook customize register, what we're doing over here, we are creating a class, a custom class. It's called Cornova customizer. We're checking if the class doesn't exist, and then we're creating this class. We're using the double underscore construct function. We all know that the moment we go ahead and instantiate the class, which we have done over here now, new Cornova customizer, the moment the class is instantiated, this function will automatically be called. And the first thing going to happen is that this add action function will be called, and customize register hook will go ahead and call this function. So as we all know that if you want to go ahead and use add action inside of a class, then we need to use array this and then the name of the function. So if we were using this add action outside of the class, then we could have just used customize register and the second parameter would have been register function. But since we are using it inside of the class, we'll pass it this way. So array this, which is the name of the class, and comma and the function that we want to call. So register is the custom function that we are calling, and WP customize, which is the object of the WP customizer class, which will be available automatically inside of this. And this function is basically our custom function inside of which we will have all the functions that we have defined inside the customizer setting, because this is including the customizer setting.php file. Okay, so what will happen is the moment the class is instantiated, the script will reach here, and this customize register hook is going to call the register function, and inside of the register function, because we're including this file, all of the functions that we had defined, which is the add setting, add control, add panel, all of that will be called. Okay, and then the script will reach here. This is going to call the customize preview init hook to enqueue the live preview JavaScript in the theme customize admin screen. This is going to call the live preview function. Live preview function is going to include the customizer live preview.js, which is this file that we discussed about. so that whenever the user make any changes over here, all of these changes will show live over here using JavaScript. Okay, and then the next hook is customizer controls enqueue scripts, which is going to include the which is going to call the load customizer control script function, which is this, which is going to include the customizer control.js, which we went ahead and created earlier. Okay, so that's what will happen over here in this class. And then last but not the least, we're going to create one more class, which is called class customizer friend.php, and we're going to create this class and use the static function custom css and define a hook over here. So in case if later on a user wants to insert their own set of quotes over here, they can. Okay, so that's about it. That's all you need to do to create the customizer, and it should be working perfectly fine. All right, that's all about it then. If you have any questions, you can always leave a comment and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you guys. Take care. Bye bye.